For those of you, I hope you've taken the Introduction to DevOps course. It covers a lot broader information about DevOps, but it also covers a little more in depth on some of these topics in continuous delivery and how DevOps applies. So some of this is review. This course, if you've taken that course, you'll be happy to know that this course actually is going to be a lot more, is labs first off, but then there'll be a lot of labs. And hopefully the balance in this one will be more labs than the videos. But we do want to cover some of the basic stuff that we covered. So here we're going to cover kind of an intro to DevOps. So we're going to kind of rehash that, and particularly if you hadn't taken the Introduction to DevOps course. Although, again, I think you should. And then we'll also kind of rehash a couple of things from that course, the habits of high-performing organization, a little bit of updated information, though, some good stuff, understanding the value stream. And then we'll get into the kind of trinity here: continuous integration, continuous delivery, and continuous deployment. So we'll go ahead and get started here. Again, on the DevOps thing, if you've taken the Introduction to DevOps, and we've covered this, but back in 2010, we had basically ran the first kind of DevOps days in the U.S. I was the only American at the original DevOps days in Ghent that Patrick DeBar built, and then we were pretty much blown away when we ran the first U.S. one, because just to put it in perspective, the one in Ghent was about 35 people. The 6 months later we ran one. 6 or 7 months later we ran one in there was like 300 people, and it was just an explosion. So I wrote this article. I was working at Chef at the time, and it was what does DevOps mean? What does DevOps mean to me? And it's about an acronym that Damon Edwards, my co-host of the DevOps Cafe podcast, we came up with this acronym called CAMS, Culture, Automation, Measurement, and Sharing. A lot about DevOps' culture. Again, covered this pretty extensively in the Introduction to DevOps course. Later on, a few years later, started working with Gene Kim in a lot of different projects, particularly the DevOps Handbook. But I wrote a book called The Convergence of DevOps, where I really tried to explain what were the things that kind of made up, the John Allspar's, there's the famous presentation from Velocity where John Allspar at Flickr tells everybody he's deploying, this is based in 2009, 10 production deploys a day, and everybody was their mind was blown. Meanwhile, there was Eric Ries, Lean Startup. There was just a bunch of things happening that were converging. So this is an article where I cover a lot of that. Also, a few years back, we went around and a couple of us tried to survey some of the people we believe were kind of leaders in this space and asked them to tell us what they thought DevOps was. And Ben Rockwood, he's over at Chef now, but he's a Joyan ex-Sun guy, just a brilliant guy. His is a banner for change. Adam Jacob, the founder of Chef, is a cultural professional movement, which is actually today still my favorite. And then John Allspar, what some people call the renewed cross-interest in development, operation, collaboration. David Edwards, my co-host, DevOps Cafe, a little bit wordy there, but he's my bud. And then the my kind of botchic loop. No one can tell you exactly what it is, but you'll know it when you see it. And if you took the Introduction to DevOps course, you kind of got a lecture from me in the beginning about I'm not going to give you a definition of DevOps. And then, again, if you've taken that course, we're kind of doing the shorter version here. Obviously, the other course has. I spent a fair amount of time on this picture because it's one of my favorite pictures, and this really plays into the whole continuous delivery. We learn a lot from Lean, and we try to build our software. Our software supply chain is really almost like a manufacturing supply chain. Knowledge work is a little bit different, but we think about lead time, and we'll cover lead time here again. And then, we try to remove the friction, or what was otherwise called the wall of confusion. Actually, Andrew Schaefer was really the author of this original picture at that same event in 2009 Velocity in Santa Clara. But, we're trying to shorten the lead time. So we're trying to get from that kind of idea, the aha, to customers paying us money. We track that by lead time. We'll get into that. And another thing that we do really well is we try to really focus in on feedback loops. So we're kind of continually trying to get shorter feedback, amplified feedback loops, find things earlier in the process.